Rise in Practice. From Lausanne, Switzerland, where the federal government is talking about reducing the length of quarantine for inbound travelers, I am Professor Demian Hodari of EHL Lausanne.
And from lovely London, evening time, it's Anita Mendiratta joining Professor Hodari once again on Rise in Practice. Every other week, we're doing a special recording to share with you some really interesting information and insight about getting back into the world in these times of COVID-19. Demian, why don't you tell us what's happening today?
Well, this episode is a little special because we're doing what we do sometimes, is checking in with our audience about how they're doing, and we've got a very special guest for that. But I don't want to get teary-eyed about this, Anita, so I'm going to actually have you do it. Tell us what's going on.
Demian, thank you. I must admit, such an important part of Rise is people being honest about the challenges of these times, which is why it's important to be able to have these check-ins. And that's exactly why Rise in Practice has Karen Sargent. She's an exceptional person to have on at this time because she's responding to what a lot of people are saying is really important right now. Is it okay to say, I'm not okay? Karen is an organizational psychologist and an executive coach. She knows exactly how people are feeling and how to make sense of those feelings to make the best out of everything we have ahead of us in a post-COVID-19 world. Karen, over to you.
And what a question, right? I don't think there's been another year where collectively, as the human race, we have faced so much, so many challenges. And I know I run workshops all the time, and so I get to speak to hundreds of people, and I get to hear about some of the challenges they face. And I don't think, there's one specific challenge, but I think there's one specific theme that all of us have faced. And I think that's loss. And I think it can be loss in terms of tangible things. Some people have lost loved ones, which is probably the hardest loss of all. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have lost their security. And again, that's very, very tangible. Some people have lost their health. I know, people who have caught COVID sometimes just don't recover from the symptoms, even though they recover from COVID. So there's been a lot of tangible losses that many of us have unfortunately experienced. But I think there's also a lot of intangible loss that is unseen, but has the same amount of impact, if not greater. We've lost certainty. We have no idea what's going on in the world right now. We have no idea when it's going to get better. We have no idea when the travel industry is going to start to recover and change. So as a result of that, we've lost our earnings, we've lost our freedom, we've lost our lifestyle. And for many of us, we've lost our mental well-being. I know I certainly really struggled when this first started. My husband and I had just come back from, it's almost like we knew. We had taken 2 months off and we were traveling all over Asia. And when we came, I was ready to start working again. I do a lot of face-to-face training normally. And literally within 2 days, 3 days of us landing, London went into lockdown, and immediately I lost all my work. And as someone who's self-employed, that was scary. I had no idea how I was going to pay my mortgage. And I did spend a couple of days, crying in bed, thinking, how am I going to get through this? But then, I think the most amazing things about us humans is that we are resilient and we are adaptable. And that's what has helped us, live. And so we can deal with any challenge, but I guess it's important to also be mindful of what is it that we're finding challenging, because there's other stuff, if we live alone, I think we've lost connectedness. So we feel a sense of isolation. I think for all of us, we feel like we've lost control. We've lost a sense of control. Here comes COVID and literally takes all our control away. And that can be really, really hard and can cause so much anxiety for all of us and so much fear. And it requires resilience, right? It requires a lot of resilience for all of us to keep moving forward despite all of this. And I think it really is. I think anytime you see big changes in the world, it's always a time of great creativity, great innovation. You know, the human species is resilient and adaptable. And the way I like to look at it is through what's called the change curve. So the change curve started when people were looking at bereavement. And generally we go through specific stages, and we're definitely going through this right now. And so, you know, the first stages are all of shock and numbness sometimes. And then there is anger. And then the fear kicks in. And then depression kicks in. And those are really, really hard stages, right? And we see ourselves maybe struggling with anxiety, for example, maybe a loss of energy, a loss of motivation, a feeling of isolation. But that's not where it ends, right? After depression, there is a period of exploration, followed by a period of adjustment. And finally, it's when we can actually adapt to our new world in a way that maybe is even better than when this whole mess started. We don't just survive through adversity, we thrive. And that is the bit that I really hold on to, is that this is a real opportunity for us to maybe reshape our lives in a way that works even better. And so I think this is why it's a really powerful time for personal growth, because life has just forced us to slow down, to take a step back and to reflect. And in our hyper connected world, our super fast world where we're rarely off a screen, actually I think these moments are precious, where we've got some time to really think about, what is it that makes me happy? What is it that inspires me? What is it that maybe I want to change in my life? There's space that's been created for all of this. We've become much more connected to our families. You know, we've realized suddenly the importance of family. And so that's importance that we're giving to that creates more connection. So again, and I think that really helps us to grow. So taking the time to use this to reflect can be so useful for all of us. And so instead of looking back and getting stuck in resisting the fact that our lives aren't what they used to be, we need to look forward, right? And think about, well, how do I make my life good? And how do I create happiness and a sense of purpose once again? Before this happened, at least even if I think about my own experience, growth and more was almost my driving force. You know, how do I grow my business? For example, how do I get to that next step? Whereas what COVID has done to myself and my husband is to just really think, okay, what's enough? And so our focus has completely shifted. Instead of continuously going, we almost feel like it's okay not to be growing at this time in terms of financially or business-wise. And I do think that again just helps you then explore, well, what is it that I really enjoy doing? Ultimately, our sense of purpose comes from doing things that we enjoy whilst being of service to something that feels bigger than ourselves. You know, feeling like we're making a contribution in this world. And so being able to figure that out right now can be hugely beneficial for us, and it can give us so many opportunities to really start following that path. And I think that's really exciting, and it gives me a lot of hope. Well, I think if I had to use two words, it would be with confident uncertainty. You know, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can be sure that we'll work it out. I know pre-COVID, I know in my 20s actually, I realized that what I was doing wasn't my purpose. I used to be a brand manager, and my heart was into psychology. I really wanted to do my master's. I really wanted to move to London, and I just jumped. And took a lot of risk. I took a massive loan to pay for my master's. I left a good job. I left my family. I left my country. And I just jumped because I was so connected to how important that was for me. And I did it again when I left employment and decided to go to be self-employed. I literally left at a time when the economic crisis was still there, and there was no guarantee of me earning any money. But the crisis, the connection I felt in my heart to what I wanted to do just helped me jump. So I think a lot of people don't do this, don't jump, because we are so tied to the question of what if it doesn't work out. And for me, I always like to balance that out with, well, what if it does? And in reality, unless we start taking action, we really don't know what doors are going to open, what opportunities are going to come our way. And it's only by taking action that we get clearer, we get more opportunities, and we move forward down this path. So that's how I would encourage people to approach any change with that confidence, uncertainty, and the confidence comes from taking that action. I think it certainly has changed. I think, the notion that there's job security, that we've got one job and it's secure, I think is probably now we've put the last nail on that coffin. It didn't start now. The death of that notion probably started in 2008 with the economic crash and a lot of people losing their jobs. And I think that has a lot of implication, especially for younger generations who maybe are going to start challenging this idea that we have been taught. At least my generation was taught, you go to university, you work hard, then you get employed and you work even harder. And then, that's how you'll be successful in life. And I think that's just been thrown out of the window. So I think now, first of all, we're going to see more self-employment. So people either doing freelance or getting into the gig economy or becoming self-employed and following something that gives them a sense of control, that they're not at the mercy of a company whose prime objective is to maintain its profits. So I think that might change, and I think that's a very positive change. I think I have a feeling nowadays we'll also start to see that having variety in our careers can be really useful, because not everyone has been affected to the extent that the travel industry. Some industries have boomed. Tech industry, for example, pharma, retail. And so maybe our interests might start moving away from the absolute specialization to maybe more general, which actually was what used to happen before universities became a place to be specialized. Universities actually started as being places for us to just learn about many different topics. And who knows, maybe it's time for us to return to there. So I do see the world changing a lot, where people take their own personal control for their work and their careers and do things that maybe give them more satisfaction, a more sense of purpose, and more happiness as a result. So your energy is precious, and your energy is what's going to help you figure out a way forward. So don't waste it on reminiscing and grieving the past and resisting what's happening, but instead use it to really think about what is it that you can do? What is under your control? And you have a lot more control than you think you have. What is under your control to actually move forward in the situation and to actually help you, as I said earlier, thrive instead of just survive? And so focus on that, focus your energy on that. And remember that even though many things have changed, not everything has changed. So also think about what's still stable in your life. What is it that you still have? And that might give you that sense that at least, it's not all up in the air. There's some things that are still here. So take some time to really reflect on what is it that stayed the same, to give you that sense of stability, and then think about the future, because that's where your energy is going to give you the most, I guess, the biggest results. I do a lot of work with leaders, and one of the most common things I come across is the fact that there's this pressure on us to be perfect, to have it all together, and to just be perfect. And actually, sometimes it's because we confuse excellence with perfection, and they're two very different things. And so, for example, like right now, leaders have had to tell their team, I don't know how to lead through this. I've never led through a pandemic. And that shows vulnerability, and that's what makes us human. And I think what's really precious about that is it's that vulnerability. It's not the perfection that creates connection with humans. It's actually when we say, I'm struggling, or this is hard for me, or I don't know. That's when people want to work with us, to support us, to get on our cause and help us move through. And so I think there's so much benefit in showing up as our human selves, whether we've got it together or not. And also to be compassionate with ourselves, right? To realize that it's okay not to be okay from time to time. And it's okay to reach out and ask for support. Because ultimately, that's what's going to result, funnily enough, in bigger connections with people and in stronger relationships. And maybe we needed to be reminded of that as a human race.
Well, that was some pretty powerful stuff there. I got a couple of things that sort of resonated with me. I'm just going to throw one out there and see what you think about it. I'm going to go right towards the end when she talked about confident uncertainty. Right? This resonated with me because in strategy, which I teach, we talk a lot about uncertainty and trying to reduce that uncertainty, whether it's through scenario planning or research or different types of analysis that we do, always trying to reduce it a little bit so we can make better decisions that have a greater chance of success. But when she's mentioned confident uncertainty, it was more like embracing that uncertainty and saying, we know that we don't know what's going on, but we have to have the confidence to understand that we're going to come out of that okay, and maybe better than before. And I thought that was a good lesson for people to take away from this, that no one has any idea what's going on. And we've talked about that before, but we have to be confident in our ability to get through it. And, it's not just going to happen by itself. We do have to take steps for that. But that's I think, a key message for me.
And I love that you say that, Demian, because it actually links to our live guests last week of Patrick and Florian talking about being entrepreneurs and the unnerving nature of being an entrepreneur on a good day, forget on a bad day. But linking to what Karen said and exactly your point about that uncertainty and finding confidence, I love what she was saying about the strength that comes from actually admitting you're feeling weak. And the fact that this year is a strange opportunity for us all to be more open to one another. I'm in your office, you're in my lounge in London. We've all been forced into a space of personal exposure that we never would have naturally maybe invited each other into. And people need to be comfortable again saying, it's okay to say I'm not okay. And part of the confidence is being, in my mind, open to being honest with people about how we're really feeling, because sustaining a really high cruising altitude all the time, all year, is not natural. At some point, we're going to run out of gas. I thought that was good to see how even leaders are able to gain more respect and empathy and following because they admit that sometimes they just don't know what's ahead, but they'll figure it out with the support of them and other people around them. I thought that was really good to hear.
Yeah, and I think people are more understanding of their leaders or of people that they work for, that they can't possibly have all the answers right now, and trying to pretend that you do have all the answers or even some of the answers at times, I think is fake. And I think people understand that they can't pretend their way out of this. And so it's a mutual understanding. I think that's a pretty important lesson as well. Yeah, it's personal and professional, all this uncertainty.
And I found that quite reassuring because that's why we created Rise. We wanted to create a safe place where people could figure out the questions before even beginning to follow the answers themselves.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love what Karen was saying about the fact that how we judge our performance this year is not based on the normal criteria. It's not about salary. It's not about promotions. It's not about profile. It's about getting through, and getting through with a sense of, I know who I am, I'm going to be okay. And the people that I know are around me that I care about, we're all going to make it through together. I thought that was really interesting in terms of the metrics of how we perform.
Yeah, and she mentioned the word growth, and that's another concept we talk a lot about in strategy and investments, right? Companies are constantly wanting to grow. And I think right now, a lot of analysts or investors are just happy to see survival, to see people, getting their house in order, taking this time to make sure things are working, fix things that aren't working. And no one's really expecting many firms, if you're not in technology or, uh, grocery stores, et cetera, to be growing. And I think that actually could have a long-term positive impact on firms who may start to realize that there's more to things than just growth, and performing well, doing well is going to become more important. And I think that's also, again, what we look for in our lives right now, what we look for at work and in business, it's probably more similar than ever before.
Indeed. And this almost goes to what you've spoken about a lot on Rise, is whether it's the cruise industry or other segments, they've completely collapsed and it's beyond their control. It just is. And so how do we help people get through that? And I think that's where this has been a really interesting little Rise in practice, and an important one, because it is important that we all stop wherever we are on our ladders, wherever we are in the world, to just say, okay, take a breath. Are we okay? Over and above, are we doing okay? I think that's a really important point, and why, again, that's why Rise has been so important to all of us. It's given us momentum. It's given us something to be a part of and laugh with and laugh at, and just feel grateful that I know that time is moving and I'm not alone. I think that's really powerful.
I agree. I mean, the last thing I would say that she said, I just love the expression, this idea of, thriving and surviving. And I just hope our audience, I'd love for them to tell us how they're thriving in this environment, but as long as they're surviving this and getting through it and stronger, hopefully, I think that's as good as we can expect. And I think that'd be great just to hear how people are doing.
Indeed. And it's all about, as we've been saying from the beginning, the next normal. Because right now, the now normal is tough, but we're moving to the next normal, and then the next normal after that, and we'll keep going. But this has been great. And I appreciate very much, Demian, that you're opening up to all of this and that you believe this is a really important part of Rise, because it is. And being part of Rise has been really important for all of us. So, Karen, thank you very much for sharing your insight and sharing you with Rise in Practice. Thrilled you could be with us. Really grateful for the insight you shared. We've got a great episode, Demian, next week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's in store?
Sure. Well, we've got a great fun title for next week. It's called Live Well and Prosper. And some of you probably know where that's from. We're focusing on the wellness industry with Susie Ellis, who was the president of spafinders.com before, and she's the head of the Global Wellness Institute, which also runs the Global Wellness Summit, the #1 summit for the people in the spa and wellness industries around the world. And with this growing industry becoming such an important part of both tourism and hospitality, and playing an incredibly important part now with the whole COVID situation going on, we just thought that this was an incredibly important industry to look at in some depth. And there's absolutely nobody better than Susie to look at this with. She's really, I think, the world's foremost expert on this industry. And she's just got so much to share. I'm really looking forward to our conversation with her.
That's going to be fascinating, because to your point, COVID-19 has created an incredible sense of well-being and the need for well-being, and yet it's high touch. How do you give well-being and yet manage all those protocols? Great choice of guest, and it'll be fantastic to have her live with us on the 12th of October. So until that time comes, everyone, you know the drill. Stay safe, stay strong, stay home, keep your hands clean, and we will see you live on Rise October the 12th. Until then, Professor Hodari, I'll see you later.
Live well and prosper.